Hey, I'm Matt Mahler with MovieWeb. It's a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for doing this. It's, I mean, 10 years. I've seen all of these films in theaters. I flew to LA to see the last one. I am, it's one of the great action franchises. But it was interesting reading about how it started with a lot of unease. From what I read, nobody really wanted to distribute this at first, and some of you were worried it might not be seen. Correct me if I'm wrong, but could you speak to that period of time and what finally changed it?
Well, so we had Lionsgate International finance the film, and we had a distributor's screening for domestic release, right? So any company could buy it. Warner, the studios, the streamers at the time, that there weren't many, right? And everyone had an opportunity to buy it, and nobody ponied up. Everyone was like, eh. And it was a weird time of year, and a lot of them sent their junior execs, but no one had the nuts to kick it up to the boss and say, you should look at this. So Lionsgate decided to buy domestic from themselves and say, okay, we'll release it, very small, probably release or something, and it'll drive international markets. It'll be like a commercial, one of their sort of financing things, like we'll figure out how to save this thing. But they're like, in the meantime, maybe we should screen it at Fantastic Fest just to see what we have. And so we screened it at Fantastic Fest, and then it blew the roof off the house. Like, people went nuts. And it was obviously our audience. Like, it was genre fans come there. It was like a Midnight Madness type screening, and people were like having the time of their life and loved to see Keanu as this character. And long story short, as the Twitterverse started to erupt, Lionsgate goes, holy shit, we have something on our hands. We need to figure out how to release this wider, and we want to get it out right now. So they had a movie that slid. And so we really only had like an 8-week window to like market the film and get it out to theaters. And but and then the rest is history. Really, like, but there was for a time there, it was like, oh, this is gonna go straight to radio. No one's gonna hear it. It's gonna listen to it on NPR.
It would still sound good, I guess.
I think so. We had a great sound department. So,
Yeah, it
the
definitely
calls to the
does.
gun sound great.
Yeah, yeah. But it is such a visual thing. You could mute it and you know the narrative, the grand emotions to it. Um yeah, it's funny. I mean, there's always a crop of people who sort of ignorantly when something breaks into the mainstream, like Bridesmaids. I remember there were a lot of critics saying, "Oh, women can be funny," or that whole discussion. And then with this, I think there were a lot of people saying, "Oh, wow, stunt coordinators." Stunt performers can be directors. What was your reaction to that sort of dialogue at the time? Was it yeah, I'll let you.
Well, it was, we were fighting the stigma for, Chad and I had been trying to direct for a good, 6 years at that point. We were already directing big sets, and we were already, on these huge films as stunt coordinators or action designers. And, but we're ready to find our small project. And, we were reading scripts, and we were going out on the town, and we were pitching. And, my wife, who is producer Kelly McCormick, who produces all my films. She was actually our manager at the time. And she was getting us in a lot of rooms, but we weren't getting traction because, it is sort of like they're just stunt guys. They can do the action, but can they really tell a story? Let's trust this kid coming out of USC who's never been on a set a day in his life, and whatever there's that stigma. And it's shocking, I guess, now when you really think back of like the history of cinema. And, cinema's first great directors were stunt performers. Charlie Chaplin, Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton, designed stunts, created stunts to tell stories and create the thrills, in the silent era. And they're the pioneers of film. And we were telling stories with our action all the time, this whole time. We were coming in and like enhancing the narrative through action and through physical storytelling, through purposeful action for years. And it was really, I think, yes, it was lightning in a bottle for us after John Wick, and then everyone like thinks like, oh, of course but no, there was no one saying that at the time. And look, we've been lucky that we're starting to bring up, some of our other stunt brethren, that have worked with us in the past that are getting their shot. John Eusebio, he's did this movie for us with Ke Quan, and that's coming out. Love Hurts, and JJ Perry. All these guys people are getting their shot now, at least getting noticed and recognized that maybe they can tell stories too.
Yeah, absolutely. And really quick to follow up, I guess the trailer for Love Hurts dropped like a week ago or earlier this month, quickly got 10 million views on YouTube. It looks fantastic, kind of like it injects a little more humor into it too. Um, can you tell us anything about that and what it was like working with Kequan?
Yeah, I mean, we really worked closely on that with JoJo. I mean, it's part, and I think part of the brand that 87 North, my company and Kelly's company has is we do inject humor. I think from my journey after Wick, having been involved in Deadpool and Hobbs and Shaw, really like I got sort of steeped in the uh comedy work. And then, Fall Guy, there's a ton of comedy, and working with Ryan Gosling, he's a genius. And so comedy's in our blood and comedy's in our brand. And so when we look for projects, oftentimes things we gravitate to have a comedic element. Even Nobody, when you look at Bob Odenkirk's, that's one of our franchises, there's a comedic element to it, even though it's dark. Yeah, I mean, look, Love Hurts. Ke Quan is so lovable and relatable, and you just put a camera on him, and he's empathetic, and he's really funny, and he's actually great at action, and so it's a really fun blend for a martial arts love story, kind of kung fu love story.
Yeah, yeah, and comedy is such a great glue for action and horror for movies that have a lot of set pieces or yeah. I I was curious. I think Chad Stahelski he spoke with the Hollywood Reporter last week and said. Referring to John Wick 4 and not the expanded universe, there's no topping what we did. That's the end. That's the deal. That's what we found closure for. Do you think things will stay that way? Do you want them to?
It's funny. I have never had the conversation with Chad because now he's really he's architecting all of that world. It's his deal, and he's doing it so well. But I can speak to it as a fan, and look, you can find ways to bring people back. You can find conventions. People love this character so much. It could be it could be zombie John Wick, and people would still go. And the action that Chad would create would be so compelling and fun and creative that it'd be a great take on it. I don't think they'll do zombie John Wick, but I mean, you can find that's what's fun about the world that we've sort of emanated from the first one. Like it was vague enough to create the rules as we went along, and like a good television show, and like that's what they can do. And I would love to see more. I love the choreography, I love the escaping into that sort of sexy, slick world. And but they're going to do it with the expansion and the other stuff. So they have that, and they have that creative outlet. So we'll see. I don't know. I vote yes, but it's not my world anymore.
Well, you have what is it called? Ballerina Overdrive. They have Ballerina. Do you have a friendly ballerina rivalry going? Who's
Yeah,
going
no,
to?
they're very different concepts. Our project, it's a real fun genre film about ballerinas and getting caught in a sort of perilous situation and they have to, fight their way out. And I think it's very, what he's doing in that universe is like he's creating another great character steeped in the lore of Wick. And so they're kind of two, they're fun. They're both fun for genre fans, but they're really, really completely different ideas.
Oh yeah, definitely. Just it was amusing, and
Yeah,
the idea. I mean, the athleticism too that's involved in that art works perfectly with
yeah,
action.
can be
And
some really fun choreography.
yeah, yeah. Do you ever want to do a follow-up of Atomic Blonde or even a John Wick crossover? It's honestly one of my favorites. It's such a visually unique movie and has such a perfect just vibe.
I would love to. I think the thing that there's just been a lot of roadblocks with Atomic Blonde when it comes to the rights issues, and I can't really speak to all of it, but like who controls it and how you know it at some point got really top heavy with producers, and it's been really hard to figure out a way to unwind all that and make a sequel at a place that wants to make it. And so but again, it's a world I'm so proud of, and it's a character that I'm so proud to have, really created with Kelly and with Charlize, and like, I love that film, and I love the '80s. So yes, would I love to go back? 1,000%. Crossover again because of all the producers involved, like it just became like a gnarled mess, when we started to think about it. But uh, it's fun to it's fun to think about. So,
Yeah, too many cooks to pick it in. I
hard.
got you. Yeah. Um, I was reading that John Wick was originally conceived of, or for a bit, as older, which was changed. Do you think Kolstad took that and maybe implemented it with nobody at all, or was that always centered on like an age-specific older man, sort of Liam Neeson type thing?
No, nobody was really something that came from Bob's head. And it was really and I think Bob has I'm pretty sure he's gone on the record on this. He had sort of a real life situation that he kind of related to nobody, and he started to write a story about that. And then when he hooked up with Derek's like, we can figure out how to make this into a movie based on this experience you had of like a break-in. And so I don't think it was really involved around age, but I do think what it was involved around is like the wish fulfillment of being able to take care of your own shit. And like everybody has that wish that like they can handle themselves in a situation. And like, so to find this guy who seems like an every person and realize that he can but really handle his own shit. It's fun to immerse yourself in and see yourself in that person.
Yeah, it definitely works because it works against our typical notions of action hero. I mean, 87 North is so great with this. You're so great with this. I mean, all the people you've worked with, what do you think defines an action hero? Because we've had such a different trajectory since, the 60s to now. Today, what is an action hero look like?
Um, well, for us, I think there's a lot of the John McClane archetype in the work that we do. Because, I mean, even with Wick, yes, Wick is a man with a ton of skills, but we're always putting him up against an impossible force, right? And and you have to set an emotional hook with the audience that you really, really care about, which with Wick, the choreography we wanted to do, it involved killing a small dog. That being said, um, look at, the Die Hard, his family that he's trying to reunite with are in trouble. And he's like, he's a cop, but he's not like super cop, and he's got to sort of surpass these impossible odds. And I think if you find that, even Charlize in Atomic Blonde, yeah, she's a super spy, but like she's trapped on the other side of Germany, and the wall is, coming down, and like all the bad guys are out in force. And um, yeah, you've got to set the empathy hook in deep with the audience, and then you got to put up an impossible force against them, and then they got to make it out on the other side. That's sort of like the cliff notes of the journey, in terms of being an action hero. And then you can add on all the different existential journeys that they're going through, but like Hutch in Nobody, he's reclaiming his he's having a midlife crisis, so he's kind of like reclaiming his youth and reclaiming his past, and like and self-actualizing into the man he used to be. And Wick is trying to find closure with his wife's passing. Charlize is trying to find herself. She's lived as a spy so long, a triple agent. She's trying to figure out who she really is, and like the death of Lorene, and like all of these things. You hang those story things on this sort of action archetype, and those things have to resolve at the end of the journey as well. And if you do all that well, you've created iconic characters. You're rooting for them. The action's visceral. It's fun, but it's related to something you want them to achieve. And on the end, there's an emotional satisfaction, and also some visceral spectacle that you can cheer for.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this theme of revenge is so prominent in action. What do you think? I think it might be because it allows audiences to accept a protagonist hurting or murdering people. But I mean, I'm thinking like Lee Marvin, Point Blank. He's just so cool, but he's doing such bad things. What is it about revenge that works so well with action and never gets old?
It doesn't, because I think it's fantasy, right? Those things you can't do in reality. You would go to jail. And, we all feel injustices, and we all feel put upon at times, and we all feel like there's someone we would just like to like wring their neck or whatever. And you go and sit in the movie you sit in there and you relate to this character, and that person gets to do it, and you get to watch it, and you have a catharsis with them. You know that they're anti-heroes. It's not really right what they're doing, but I'm on the journey with them because they were so wronged. And it's just great storytelling, and it's been around forever, and it allows us as humans to work through our own issues when we can see characters, because ultimately revenge is, what's the parable, if you enter a path of revenge, dig two graves. Because ultimately the moral of the tale is, yes, you'll get it, but is it going to be worth it? And so great stories, and even Wick, we're in episode, the fourth, it's like he's on this whole tear, but ultimately he ends up in the grave. And that's the moral tale.
Yeah, 100%. I love the Chan Wook Park revenge films that kind of really extrapolate that a lot. While I still have you, hypothetically, let's say there's a best stunt performer award next year, whenever. Who would you nominate? Who would be in there?
Well, just see, for the record, we're working inside the academy. There's a small group of stunt performers, and there's a lot, there's over 100 plus stunt coordinators inside the academy, and we are in the production and technology branch, and we are working with the academy to figure out a path for a stunt Oscar. We're modeling that after. I mean, there's discussions of like, should it go to the performer? Should it go to the coordinator? And I think, we're really sort of trying to model it after some of the other department heads. And like maybe like in SAG, the award goes to the department head. So maybe it's for best stunt design and best action as opposed to an individual performer. I think that's more of in line of like how the award should be laid out. That being said, if I had to give an award to somebody this year, I would say the Stairfall in Wick was pretty awesome feat of physical stunt performing. And yeah, just blown away by that.
Yeah, yeah, it was like the rage condensed into a brilliant block. Yeah, so good. I guess finally, what are you most excited about that 87 North is doing? You have a lot of projects coming up, or that you're directing.
I look, I have a lot of things in the fire and things I don't want to, release yet, but we are currently developing Kung Fu with Donnie Yen, and we're getting really close. And I think it's going to be so fun for genre fans, our take on it and what, Donnie is the premier martial arts star of the world. And having him inhabit this iconic character, and now see that it's kung fu and that's what he's an expert at, is really exciting for 87 North. And so that we're hoping to get into production soon. And you know, that's something I'm really excited about. Like having a franchise called Kung Fu with Donnie Yen just feels like I know I want to go see that.
Was that idea, did that exist before he was in John Wick 4? Or yeah, really?
Yeah, yeah, I have been huge fans of Donnie, and we had secured the IP and had it set up at Universal, and we had been like figuring out like who to put in it and how. And Donnie had been on the other side, like wondering who had the Kung Fu IP because he's been wanting to do it for years. And agents put two and two together and they're like, you 87 North has it. They've had it for a couple of years. They're trying to figure out what to do with it. And so then I had a meeting with Donnie, about a year ago, and we I told him my take on it and what we wanted to do and how to contemporize it, but still give it this sort of Western feel. And he was like, I'm in, let's go. And so we've been working on the script and it's coming to fruition, and we want to make it.
We can't wait. Thank you so much. You've been very generous. Congrats on, 10 years of this and everything you're doing.
Well, thank you very much.